Hey everyone, and welcome back to Moveless History, where we don't just tell you about history, we immerse ourselves in it, often unearthing the surprisingly mundane, the truly bizarre, and the utterly exhausting realities that shaped lives thousands of years ago. Tonight, we're not just talking about a commute, we're attempting to capture the entire sprawling, chaotic, noisy, and often, frankly, disgusting symphony of movement that defined daily existence in the ancient Roman world. If you thought our previous foray into the Paleolithic morning was a lot, buckle up. We're going to push past the popular images of emperors and gladiators, beyond the pristine marble temples, and deep into the very dust and grime that clung to every Roman as they tried to get from point A to point B. This isn't just about how they moved. It's about the very pulse of their civilization, the raw energy that propelled an empire, one blistered foot, one creaking cart, one heaving litter at a time. This is Ancient Commutes, the epic saga of getting from here to there, and why your rush hour is a spa day in comparison. Before we embark on this truly exhaustive expedition, please do us a solid, hit that like button, subscribe to Moveless History, and join our growing legion of historical deep divers. We thrive on your engagement, so also in the comments below, don't just tell us your worst commute. Tell us about the weirdest thing you've ever seen on your way to work. We need to know if modern absurdity can truly compete with ancient chaos. Now, turn off every single light, disconnect from the internet, and prepare to truly imagine a world where GPS meant memorizing every crack in the pavement and your morning pick-me-up was a gulp of questionable river water. Let's get moving, for real this time. The tyranny of the foot, Rome's walking millions. For the vast, overwhelming majority of Rome's estimated 1 million inhabitants at its peak, the primary, indeed almost exclusive, mode of daily transport was the humble foot. Forget horses, forget chariots. Mostly, we'll get to that. Forget anything with a wheel that wasn't carrying goods. If you were a shopkeeper, a craftsman, a laboring slave, a teacher, a laundress, a market vendor, or even a low-ranking civil servant, your day began and ended with walking. And not just a leisurely stroll through a park. We're talking navigating a gauntlet of humanity, animals, and urban refuse. The cityscape itself dictated this pedestrian dominance. Rome, like most ancient cities, grew organically, layer upon layer, without the benefit of master planning committees or zoning laws. Streets were narrow, winding, and often irregular, a labyrinth of alleyways, cramped thoroughfares, and sudden dead ends. The insulae, those towering multi-story apartment blocks that housed up to 90% of the population, were packed tightly together, creating canyons of brick and concrete that funneled foot traffic into dense, slow-moving rivers of people. Imagine living on the 5th floor of a 6-story building, sharing a single communal staircase with dozens of other families, and then stepping out into a street that was simultaneously a market, a workshop, and a public toilet. Your morning commute began the moment your feet hit the landing outside your tiny apartment door. These weren't polite, orderly sidewalks. Paving, while present on main arteries like the Via Sacra, was often uneven, worn by centuries of foot traffic and the occasional wagon. Smaller streets might be little more than packed earth, turning into muddy quagmires after a rain shower, or dusty, uneven trenches during dry spells. You were constantly navigating around obstacles, overflowing market stalls, tethered donkeys, piles of refuse, because public trash collection was a bit hit or miss. Street performers, beggars, and the unavoidable presence of human and animal waste. Every step was a calculation, a minor skirmish for space, a dance of avoidance. Your sandals or bare feet were your primary interface with this gritty reality. And a good, sturdy sole was less about fashion and more about preventing a debilitating injury from a sharp stone or a misplaced piece of ceramic. Think of it as an extreme urban obstacle course, every single day, twice a day. The elite's elevated experience, litters and the cost of comfort. While the masses trudged, Rome's elite floated. The lectica, or litter, was the ultimate status symbol for the wealthy Roman, a mobile throne that physically elevated its occupant above the common rabble. These were essentially enclosed sedan chairs, ranging from simple, utilitarian wooden boxes to ornate, finely carved and richly upholstered palanquins, sometimes adorned with bronze fittings, ivory inlays, or even precious stones. They could be carried by 2, 4, or for the truly opulent 6 or even 8 muscular slaves, the lecticarii. Imagine the scene. A senator, dressed in his pristine toga, reclining comfortably within his lectica, perhaps dictating correspondence to a scribe walking alongside, or simply enjoying the elevated view, literally looking down on the struggles of the plebeians. This wasn't just about comfort, it was a powerful display of wealth and social standing. The number of lecticarii employed directly correlated with the owner's status. More bearers meant more prestige. These slaves were specifically trained for this demanding task, learning to move in perfect sync to ensure a smooth, dignified ride for their master or mistress. It was a rigorous job, requiring immense strength, endurance, and precise coordination, especially when navigating Rome's notorious street congestion. But even this aristocratic convenience came with its own set of paradoxes. While the occupant enjoyed a serene journey, the lectica itself contributed significantly to the very problem of overcrowding. A team of 6 bearers and a litter occupied a considerable amount of street space, forcing pedestrians to scramble out of the way. The sheer arrogance of these mobile status symbols demanding passage through already choked arteries must have fueled a silent resentment among the masses who had to literally step aside. It was a tangible daily reminder of the vast chasm between the haves and have-nots, played out on the cobblestones. Furthermore, the reliance on human power meant the speed was limited to a brisk walk, so while comfortable, it wasn't necessarily fast. In the sprawling urban expanse of Rome, even the most luxurious lectica could get stuck in a human traffic jam. The nighttime rumble, the absence of daytime wheels. Here's where a common misconception about Roman cities gets debunked. Chariots and wagons were not a ubiquitous feature of Roman daytime street life, at least not in the capital. Imagine the chaos if they were. Emperor Julius Caesar, in a surprisingly prescient move, enacted laws, the Lex Iulia Municipalis, restricting the movement of most wheeled vehicles within Rome's walls during daylight hours. This was a direct response to the unbearable noise, congestion, and danger posed by constant heavy traffic. For the city dweller, this was a blessing. For merchants and suppliers, it was a logistical nightmare. This meant that the vast majority of goods, the grain that fed the populace, the wine, olive oil, building stone, timber, and all the raw materials that fueled Rome's colossal economy had to be transported through the city at night. Imagine the incessant, grinding cacophony, the creaking of heavy wooden wheels on stone, the shouts of teamsters urging their oxen or mules forward, the clatter of amphorae and crates being loaded and unloaded in the narrow streets, all under the flickering, smoky light of torches. Sleeping in an insula, especially one fronting a major thoroughfare, must have been a perpetual exercise in exhaustion. No noise-canceling headphones, no double-pane windows, just the raw, unrelenting soundtrack of an empire being fed and built. Your morning calm was often shattered, not by an alarm clock, but by the fading rumble of the last nighttime delivery cart. This strict division of labor and movement, separating daytime pedestrian and elite litter traffic from nocturnal heavy transport, was a unique Roman solution to a very modern problem. Riverine arteries. The liquid commute. While Rome was a city of 7 hills, it was also bisected by the mighty Tiber River, providing an alternative, often vital, means of transport. For those living near its banks or needing to reach the bustling port of Ostia at its mouth, riverine travel offered a distinct advantage. A smoother, less congested, and often quicker journey than navigating the land-based chaos. Barges, large flat-bottomed boats, were the workhorses of the Tiber, constantly ferrying immense quantities of goods, particularly grain from the granaries at Ostia, upriver to Rome's warehouses. These were typically towed upstream by teams of oxen walking along towpaths on the riverbanks, or, if conditions allowed, by gangs of sweating laborers. Downstream, the current did most of the work. For people, smaller ferry boats provided regular cross-river services, a practical alternative to battling the crowds on the bridges. For longer distances, passenger boats, sometimes little more than simple rowboats or slightly larger sailing vessels, could take you to the coast or to other riverside towns. Imagine the gentle sway of a boat, the relatively fresh air compared to the city's fetid streets, the quiet lapping of the water. It was perhaps the closest a Roman came to a truly relaxing commute. The view, too, was unique, the city sprawling outwards from its riverbanks, offering a different perspective than the claustrophobic street canyons. This was particularly true for those who lived closer to Ostia, Rome's primary port, where the river was a bustling highway of international trade. Merchants, sailors, and even government officials frequently utilized this liquid route, bypassing the land-based mayhem entirely. It was a testament to Roman pragmatism that they leveraged their natural geography to create efficient, if sometimes labor-intensive, logistical networks beyond the city walls. Rural rhythms and military marches. The Roman commute wasn't confined to the capital. Across the vast Roman Empire, from the vineyards of Gaul to the deserts of Egypt, daily movement took on myriad forms. In rural areas, the rhythms of the commute were dictated by agriculture. Farmers walked to their fields, sometimes for miles, often accompanied by their animals. Shepherds led their flocks to pasture. Villagers trekked to the nearest town market, often carrying their produce on their heads or in baskets strapped to donkeys. These commutes were often solitary, exposed to the elements, and measured in the hard-won miles covered each day. Roads here might be well-maintained segments of a major via, or simply dusty tracks worn by centuries of passage. The commute was less about dodging crowds and more about battling the terrain, the weather, and the occasional wild animal. Then there was the unique commute of the Roman military. The legions, the backbone of the empire, were masters of mobility. Their daily movement was a disciplined march, often covering 20 miles or more a day, even with full packs weighing upwards of 60 pounds. This wasn't a commute to a desk job. It was a march to conquest, to defend borders, or to suppress rebellions. Roman roads, meticulously engineered with layers of gravel, crushed stone, and sometimes paving, were built specifically to facilitate these rapid military movements. Every soldier was a walking, self-contained unit, and their collective movement was a testament to Roman efficiency and endurance. This military commute shaped the very landscape of the empire, leaving behind a network of roads that are still visible today, a silent monument to daily Roman mobility. The sensory overload. Noise, smells, and social friction. To truly understand the Roman commute, you must engage your senses, or at least imagine them assaulted. The noise was simply inescapable. Imagine a city without internal combustion engines, but with 1 million people, thousands of animals, and hundreds of trades all operating simultaneously in close quarters. The constant chatter of voices, the shouts of vendors. Fresh fish. Who needs fresh fish? The braying of donkeys, the clatter of tools from workshops, the hammering of smiths, the occasional distant roar from the Colosseum, the splashing of public fountains, and at night, the relentless rumble of heavy wagons. It was a perpetual din, a sensory cacophony that would drive a modern city dweller to the brink of madness. Romans presumably developed an unparalleled ability to tune it out, or perhaps simply a higher tolerance for constant auditory bombardment. And the smells. Oh, the smells. Ancient Rome was a city of stark contrasts. Magnificent temples alongside putrid alleyways. The morning air, as you stepped out for your commute, would be a complex bouquet of aromas. Fresh baking bread from the Pistrina bakeries, incense from a nearby temple, the sharp tang of urine from public urinals or unemptied chamber pots, which were sometimes emptied directly into the street from upper-story windows. Yes, really, the sweet stench of refuse, the metallic tang of blood from a butcher's stall, and the pervasive, unforgettable aroma of garum, the fermented fish sauce that was a staple of the Roman diet. This potent condiment was made in open vats, often near residential areas, and its distinctive, pungent odor wafted through the streets, clinging to clothes and hair. Your commute was an olfactory journey, a constant negotiation with a parade of powerful, often unpleasant, scents. This close-quarters movement also fostered a unique kind of social friction. There were no polite excuse-me's in the Roman crowd. Pushing, shoving, and aggressive jostling were simply part of the daily dance. Verbal insults, often colorful and crude, were common. If you were a slave carrying a heavy burden, you were expected to clear a path. If you were a wealthy citizen, you expected others to do the same for you. Accidents were common. A trip, a fall, a spilled basket of goods could lead to immediate shouting matches and sometimes even minor brawls. The commute was not just a physical journey, but a constant, low-level social negotiation, a daily reminder of the pecking order and the competitive nature of urban life. Hazards and health. The unseen costs of mobility. The Roman commute, unlike its modern counterpart, came with a constant, often unseen, array of health and safety hazards. Beyond the obvious risk of getting trampled by a crowd or run over by a rogue cart at night, daily exposure to the urban environment took a significant toll. Pavement was often uneven, leading to twisted ankles, falls, and bruised knees. Imagine walking miles each day on rough cobblestones, often in simple sandals. The constant jarring and impact must have led to chronic foot and joint pain. For the elderly or infirm, a daily commute was a heroic act of endurance. Sanitation, as we touched on, was a major concern. The sheer volume of waste human, animal, and domestic in the streets meant that cuts, scrapes, or open sores on the feet were prime entry points for infections. Water, often drawn from public fountains fed by aqueducts, was generally cleaner than local wells, but still not sterile. The air itself, thick with dust, smoke from countless cooking fires, and the unidentifiable particulate matter from a million bustling lives, contributed to respiratory ailments. Commuting was a daily exposure to a cocktail of environmental stressors. Crime was another persistent threat. While Roman law enforcement, the vigils, provided some deterrent, they were stretched thin, particularly in the sprawling, labyrinthine poorer districts. Pickpockets thrived in crowds, and the narrow, unlit alleyways became dangerous after dusk. If you were returning home with your day's wages, or a valuable purchase, you were a potential target. This necessitated a constant vigilance, an awareness of your surroundings that would exhaust a modern commuter. The safest bet was always to travel in a group, but that wasn't always possible. Then there were the structural hazards. Rome's insulae were notoriously shoddily built, often extended upwards without proper foundations. Collapses were not uncommon, sending debris raining down onto the streets below. Fire, too, was a constant threat, and a rapidly spreading blaze could turn your morning route into a deadly inferno. A Roman's commute was a gamble with the universe every single day, with few safety nets beyond personal luck and cautious navigation. The commute of goods, feeding an empire on the move. While we focused on people, a massive, unseen daily commute also involved the goods that sustained Rome. This city of a million mouths couldn't feed itself. Grain from Egypt and North Africa, wine from Gaul, olive oil from Spain, timber from distant forests, marble from quarries across the empire, all had to be transported into, through, and around the city. This was the true engine of Roman logistical genius, and it relied on a complex interplay of land and water transport. Ships brought vast quantities of bulk goods to Ostia, Rome's port. From there, lighter barges would transfer the cargo up the Tiber. Once at Rome's riverside docks, the Emporium, the real work began. Goods were unloaded by legions of dock workers, often slaves, and then transferred onto various types of wheeled vehicles. Heavy plaustra, ox-drawn wagons for very heavy loads, or lighter two-wheeled carry for more nimble deliveries. These were the vehicles banned during the day, meaning the nocturnal urban landscape was dominated by these massive, lumbering supply lines. Imagine the coordination. Hundreds of wagons, thousands of teamsters and laborers, all working through the night to ensure that by morning, the markets were stocked, the granaries full, and the building sites had their materials. This constant movement of resources was the lifeblood of the city, enabling its immense population to survive. The commute of these goods was arguably more critical to Rome's survival than any individual's journey to work. It was a silent, unglamorous ballet of logistics, a testament to the fact that an empire runs not just on military might, but on efficient, if chaotic, supply chains. Commutes across the social stratum. A day in the life. Let's try to piece together some specific commutes, moving beyond the generalities. The senator's morning. He wakes in his opulent domus on the Palatine Hill, perhaps around the second hour, 8 a.m. After a quick light breakfast and being dressed by his slaves, his lectica is ready. 4 to 6 strong lecticarii are waiting, having already checked the route for any obvious blockages. His journey to the Forum, or perhaps the Senate House, is a sedate, elevated affair. He might glance out at the pushing crowds, a distant, detached observer. His main concern isn't physical exertion, but perhaps avoiding a politically inconvenient encounter or ensuring his toga remains immaculate. His commute time is spent mentally preparing for debates or receiving clients at his home before leaving. The artisan's hustle. A potter living in the Suburra, Rome's bustling working-class district. He wakes well before dawn, perhaps at the first crow of the rooster. After a piece of bread and some water, he pulls on his simple tunic and sandals. His journey to his workshop, perhaps in a slightly less crowded part of town, is a brisk walk through waking streets. He's dodging refuse, perhaps greeting a neighbor, and definitely alert for any dangers. He might carry a small bag with his tools, or simply rely on those at his shop. His commute is largely physical, a direct transition from home to labor. He knows every crack in the pavement, every shortcut, and every vendor offering a quick bite. The enslaved laborer's trek. For the vast numbers of enslaved people, their commute was often the most brutal. If they lived in separate slave quarters, it was a forced march, often in chains or under guard, to a quarry, a farm outside the city, or a large public works project. If they lived within their master's household, their commute was often a few steps from their sleeping quarters to the kitchen, garden, or workshop. But for those assigned to large-scale infrastructure projects like aqueducts or roads, the commute could be miles of forced marching before a full day of back-breaking labor, often with minimal food or water. Their movement wasn't about getting to work. It was the work, a constant state of forced mobility. The matron's errands. A Roman matron, even if she had a lectica at her disposal, might often walk for daily errands, especially to visit friends or attend to family matters, if within a reasonable distance. For her, the commute was a social act, a chance to see and be seen, to gather gossip from the market, or to inspect goods. She would likely be accompanied by a slave or two, perhaps a pedicquis, foot attendant, adding to the entourage. Her walk was a form of public display, a subtle negotiation of status within the urban fabric. The psychological and cultural impact, beyond the physical realities, the Roman commute left an indelible mark on the Roman psyche and culture. The constant noise and crowds undoubtedly fostered a certain resilience, a capacity to endure sensory overload that would shatter a modern mind. It also, paradoxically, created a profound sense of community, of shared experience. Everyone, from the wealthiest to the poorest, was forced to confront the same messy, vibrant, and challenging urban environment on a daily basis. It was a commonality, a shared trial by street, even if experienced from different vantage points. This daily struggle for mobility also influenced Roman art and literature. Poets like Juvenal lamented the noise and dangers of Rome's streets, painting vivid pictures of collapsing buildings and teeming crowds. Frescoes depict street scenes showing the bustling movement of carts, animals, and people. The very architecture of Rome, with its grand public spaces designed to accommodate vast throngs, was a direct response to the reality of a walking, moving populace. The aqueducts, the baths, the markets, all were points of convergence, destinations for daily commutes, and vital organs in the sprawling body of the city. The concept of time itself was intertwined with the commute. While we measure time in minutes of travel, Romans might have thought in terms of how many shouts or how many jostles it took to get somewhere. Punctuality was a relative concept, often dictated by the unpredictable flow of the streets rather than a strict clock. There was a constant underlying stress associated with navigating this environment, an exhaustion that seeped into every aspect of life. Your body was your primary tool for mobility, and it took a beating every single day. Leçon in endurance. So, as we bring our monumental historical journey to a close, it's clear. The ancient Roman commute was not merely a way to get from here to there. It was a crucible of daily life, a raw, unvarnished testament to human endurance, adaptability, and the sheer force of will. It was a constant negotiation with noise, smells, crowds, and physical danger. There were no sleek, efficient transit systems, no quiet personal vehicles, no pleasant coffee shops to grab a latte before plunging into the workday. It was all grit, all human power, and all encompassing. The next time you're stuck in a modern traffic jam or cursing a delayed train, take a moment. Breathe in the relatively clean air, enjoy the silence of your personal space, and marvel at the efficiency, however flawed, of your air-conditioned, insulated journey. The Romans moved an empire, not with the hum of engines or the whoosh of subways, but with the relentless beat of millions of feet, the creak of carts, and the grunts of lecticarii. Their commute was a daily marathon, a testament to a civilization built on the unwavering, often agonizing, principle of getting things done, one challenging step at a time. It's a powerful reminder that while technology changes, the fundamental human need to move, to connect, and to thrive remains the most constant force in history. Thank you for embarking on this truly epic historical exploration with Moveless History. We hope you found a new, profound appreciation for your own daily travels. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and continue sharing your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Until next time, keep moving, but perhaps a little more comfortably.